takes the lid off the convertible.
This week, Carnography asks, is it possible to take your top off in Britain without making an exhibition of yourself? And to Japan, where motoring is so advanced you can send your car out by itself for the sushi. And we poke the soft white underbelly of Britain's last motoring hope, the Reliant Robin. How come American cars are so big? I mean, even given the fact that the average American is the size of a Barrett house, this is going too far. Yet strangely, the taste and appetite for cars like this is an Edsel, is still amongst our average American citizen. They don't want to save the whale or save the planet by driving little European hatchbacks. They want a car that's big enough to square dance in. Of course, in the States, the big car has always been treated like a constitutional right, despite an increasing anxiety in the rest of the Western world about diminishing global fuel supplies and pollution. But the Americans have always been heavily persuaded that when it comes to saving the world, it's not their problem.
Everybody wants better gas mileage. But if proposed new laws force gas mileage too high, manufacturers will have to build mostly smaller cars. While smaller cars, like the one on the right, can save gas, government safety experts say they could cost you something far more precious. Fuel economy is important, but safety is vital.
With propaganda like this, it was a big surprise for everyone when the new green-hearted President Clinton announced plans to develop American cars that wouldn't need to tow a fuel tanker for a visit to the mall.
We're going to try to give America a new car-crazy chapter in her rich history. To launch a technological venture as ambitious as any our nation has ever attempted. General Motors, Ford, Chrysler, and your national government have agreed to develop affordable, attractive cars that are up to 3 times more fuel efficient.
Here in Washington, D.C., the auto industry and the federal government have been working very closely together, and we're very optimistic about this new partnership. We feel that the Clean Car Initiative has great potential. The auto industry has the opportunity to share the resources of the federal government. The federal government is using the resources of the auto industry and the expertise of the auto industry. It's a very, very far-reaching initiative that is looking at technologies that aren't even in existence today.
Well, they certainly were in existence 10 years ago when this Renault prototype was doing 110 miles per gallon. So why don't Detroit save themselves some trouble and give Renault a call to ask them how they did it? Maybe they just don't have the yellow pages for Paris.
Well, Detroit has never been serious about producing green cars. They've always looked at it as a thing to avoid, delay, and not do until next year or 5 years hence. Although the manufacturers have proclaimed great support for the Clinton-Gore initiative, in my view, we're very wary because this is often an excuse for not doing something today.
Well, perhaps the reason that the auto industry support Bill's plans is because they still focus firmly on the internal combustion engine. But with California already demanding that a percentage of cars must be zero emission by the year 2000, Detroit are finding themselves much less thrilled by the future.
General Motors and the entire auto industry has been opposed to the electric vehicle mandate. The mandate is there for California right now. We simply don't know how to meet that mandate given today's current battery technology.
Well, may we make a suggestion? Why not ask the man who invented this car, the American Flywheel System 20?
The flywheel car is powered by an electromechanical flywheel battery that will power a mid-size luxury 5-passenger car from 0 to 60 in 6.8 seconds and with a range of 350 miles per charge. And that compares very favorably with the internal combustion engine.
The batteries at the heart of the AFS are a space technology-derived power source. The flywheels inside the circular casings are charged up by plugging the car into the mains. Once the flywheels are spinning, they generate the power for the electric motor that drives the car. When they stop spinning, you simply plug them in again.
It's a zero-emission vehicle. doesn't have a exhaust pipe, doesn't have a radiator, doesn't have all of the things that you see under your normal hood or bonnet of today's cars.
But you may say the car is not truly green if its batteries need charged by using mains electricity. However, there is a greener alternative, the fuel cell car.
Energy Partners set out with a vision to prove that fuel cells are a viable alternative to internal combustion engines. Our company's founder, Mr. John Perry, who has long been a visionary in alternative energy fields, provided over $2 million of his own money to take this concept from a conceptual design on paper all the way to the reality that we see here.
But you always have a bunch of disbelievers when you try to change anything. I mean, that's normal. And I've been through that, and it doesn't bother me a bit. I'll just go ahead and do it.
The Energy Partners green car also has an electric motor, but doesn't need batteries. It generates its own electricity by reacting hydrogen with oxygen across a proton exchange membrane inside these fuel cells.
The fuel cell provides a unique opportunity from the environmental aspect. Its only emission is water. This water is so pure that it could be used in a kidney dialysis machine, and it is readily drinkable.
Standard transmission?
Yeah, but with the electric motor, you don't really need it. The only reason we left it in was so that we could get reverse easy.
Oh, okay.
It never has to be, you never have to do anything to it. You just turn on and it goes.
The idea is you pull up to a gas station and put a hydrogen.
Oh, I see.
It takes away the battery aspect of having to recharge it every night.
And how far can you go before you have to refuel, so to speak?
In a regular production model, you're looking at 300 miles,
Ooh.
Same as a regular car.
Energy Partners may have cracked the fossil fuel problem, but they've got work to do convincing drivers that the future looks like a pickup filled with old fridges. But surely the much more groovy AFS would merit a phone call from the Detroit manufacturers.
We've received nothing by way of encouragement. In fact, quite the opposite from the big three, and that stands in stark contrast to virtually all of the other major automobile manufacturers in the world. The Japanese have been courting us for many months at the automobile show in Los Angeles. Mercedes, BMW, Peugeot, the new Indonesian owners of Lamborghini all approached us and wanted to discuss seriously the opportunity for them to build the car.
It doesn't take a conspiracy theorist to suspect the American government and the car manufacturers have no real interest in developing truly green cars. Not only would they lose money, there's the small matter of upsetting the oil companies to consider. But why let the truth get in the way of good PR?
This is really looking to push the envelope beyond anything we've done in the past. It's the only way to do something like this far-reaching is with the resources of GM, Ford, Chrysler, and the federal government.
Notice as you get older, you start to make excuses for not doing young things anymore. Oh, the music's too loud. No, I'm not going windsurfing because I might not make it home in time for Casualty. Old, old, old. However, you probably think you're still a bit of a hot driver. After all, driving is an opportunity for all of us, regardless of age, to get up a bit of speed without ruffling our hair. Well, wrong again, because there is a school of thought that says if the wind is not in your hair, you're not driving at all. Yes, chaps, except this is Britain. It's cold and it's crap. But not wanting to be thought of as past it, Carnography took out 3 very different cars with one thing in common: no bloody roof. The retitled Ford Escort SI Cabriolet represents a soft top for the sake of being seen in. In its standard form, it barely merits discussion, an ordinary car for ordinary everyday business. But as soon as Ford took the roof off, it took on a totally different personality. Suddenly this previously innocent vehicle became the kind of car you might glimpse parked outside Stringfellows, full of page 3 girls waving empty champagne bottles. The absolute 80s cabriolet. But I mean, why? I mean, why take the top off a Ford Escort, really?
It's a poser's car, but I mean, it's an affordable poser's car. I mean, you can tell by the zingy paint job. It's meant to be eye-catching in a very gauche, accessible kind of way.
What does it symbolise, though? What was all that in the 80s about?
This is the Essex car. This is the I've made a wedge and I'm going to flaunt it car. But it's not a BMW, and it can't even pretend to be a BMW. So it's definitely aimed at a certain kind of person.
What kind of person would that be, Catherine?
A hairdresser.
I always thought of it as a car that you'd see Wham in.
Yes, I know what you mean by Wham, but I think just looking at this, and particularly in this paint job, it says to me blonde, it says perm. It could be a man, I guess, but this one says blonde perm ankle chain.
But time moves on, and happily, like stonewashed jeans and Simon Bates, the Escort Cabriolet has had its day, and who'd miss it?
Well, I think I'm biased, actually, because I already own an XR3 Cabriolet, and I think they're fantastic.
It's absolutely wonderful. Really nice car.
Very nice, yes, very stylish. It's not just a yuppie car, I don't think, because there's so many people. Your average man on the street can have a convertible now. It doesn't have to be an expensive boy's toy.
It's like a housewives type car, you know, going to Safeways on a Saturday.
And that's exactly what you get for £16,000. It's still a Ford Escort, just a very cold Ford Escort. But there's more to a soft top than just cutting the roof off. Real soft top motoring was always glamorous, adventurous and expensive, and it doesn't come more expensive than the Aston Martin Volante. For £148,000 you get all the trappings that would delight any public school cabinet minister. Walnut veneer, hand-tooled leather seats. Unfortunately, you have to pick up the prostitutes yourself. I don't know if this does embody the spirit, though, of the old grand touring days. Because, it does seem to me to be a slight compromise from Aston Martin. I mean, what is it that kind of evokes that spirit for you about it?
Well, excellent road holding, admirable, admiring glances from the people, looking out, seeing the views properly. You must remember that all cars were open in the old days. My father, who died in 1929, never had a closed car all his life. It was only in the late 1930s that closed cars began coming in, when the all-steel body was made. And so even people went as far to say that it was a great cure for common cold to go out in an open-top car. I think we walk up very sissy nowadays. We don't you know, like to be cold. We don't put overcoats on. One used to put clothes on to get into a car in the old days. Nowadays, you just walk in from your office either into a heated car or into an air-conditioned car. This is proper fresh air. And you have wind in your hair, and you really feel your motoring.
Well, but you see, I think you'd be a terrible sissy to spend your money on this car, because it's not like open-top motoring at all. I mean, you barely notice the absence of the roof.
Oh, yes, you do.
Oh, do you?
Yes, absolutely, yes. You should go along. Of course, at 70 miles an hour, you will find quite a lot of wind in your hair.
Well, by the time you've inherited enough money and lost enough sense of style to buy this car, you probably won't have much hair left to feel the wind in. For a car that purports to have breeding, the Aston is more vulgar than the Escort and offers little by way of open-top excitement and adventure, unless you stop to ask directions in Moss Side. Which only leaves this, the Caterham 7. The Caterham is not so much a car, it's more like a ride at Euro Disney and very nearly as cold. Such is the effect of driving this vehicle that after half an hour behind the wheel, one almost starts to look upon the anorak as a good thing. You think it's worth being pointed at from other cars and being called a moron just to drive this?
No, I don't think people understand quite what pleasure people are getting when they're driving these cars. Admittedly, on a day like this, it does seem daft, but it is truly a lot of fun.
It does seem a very traditional English car, you know, it makes me think of the Avengers and almost like pre-war driving. Do you think that's deliberate or somehow Caterham's stuck in a fantasy era?
This car is grown out of a situation, I think it would be around the late 50s, where the former Lotus boss, Colin Chapman, took one of his basic racing cars and clothed the chassis with this body, and from that time on it was a very stark, very cheap, very simple sports car sold in increasing quantities. And the one surprising thing now is that you're sitting in one of the most popular sports car types in the country today.
It's basically like just sitting in a chair on a chassis. There's not much else. You don't really get much else. You don't even get a door.
You don't get a door, you don't get much of a heater, you don't get much of a gear shift movement, you don't get much of a boot. you don't even get much of a steering wheel. But all these things, I mean, small is beautiful, and they add up, strangely, to one of the biggest motor cars in terms of fun and performance that you could ask for.
But it's impossible to sneer at the Caterham's daft git appearance for long. The more you drive this car, the more you enjoy it. With a 0-to-60 time of under 6 seconds and go-kart-like handling, it delivers a whole new open-top experience that was totally absent from the other two cars. Despite the freezing temperatures and the constant threat of being seen by someone you know, the Caterham is the only car that really justifies taking the top off in Britain. So in other words, stick with the Fiesta. City of the future, a constant whine of high-speed traffic as the citizens travel at ever-increasing speeds to design a future for the world. Not. In fact, Tokyo is grinding to a halt, buckling under imminent gridlock on a road system that was designed in the 70s. The country that's famous for mass-producing cars is now being hoisted by its own petard. And whilst there are more technologically minded brain cells in Tokyo than E-numbers in a pot noodle, neither car user nor car manufacturer wants to take responsibility for the problem.
The only solution for Tokyo will be achieved by examining the relationship between users, manufacturers, and the city's infrastructure. The solution will not be found by developing the car or the road in isolation. If Tokyo, with its limited space and high population, can solve the traffic problem, it could be an example to the rest of the world.
But not everyone believes the conventional car is the only way to get around the city. The Japanese would appear to have no shortage of wild ideas for the future of urban transport, even if these Heath Robinson attempts are the automotive equivalent of a first-year art school project devised under the influence of mind-altering drugs. Except that this meringue-inspired craft is the work of Toyota, a company experienced enough to know better. Codenamed the Jam, this is their solution to congestion in inner cities. Imagine the chaos as commuters abandon their mother vehicles at the first sign of a traffic jam and set off at 5 miles an hour in this motorised dentist chair to create another one somewhere else.
When I was a child, I thought the future would be shining. I imagined fantastic dream cars in the shape of dolphins and hats. Now I'm in my 40s. I realize that the future has already come. It is here now. It is this car. And the future is the same as the past.
We can try and develop the dream car, the flying car, the very compact car, the car with extraordinary fuel efficiency. But the car as we know it will hardly be pursued any further.
So far, all the car manufacturers have done is to deal with the symptoms of gridlock. The in-car TV set is already widely available, but it's tricky to watch while on the move unless you have a Nissan AQX, which will automatically keep a safe distance from the car in front, saving wear and tear on brake, clutch and temper, and ideal for the Open University viewer. But for the ultimate in hands-off motoring, Toyota have developed a system which will steer, keep pace with traffic and stop safely under controlled driving conditions. However, chances are, soon as you hit the open road, you'll get shunted up the rear by someone in a Lada.
As with other Japanese industrial products, cars are already full of devices that have been created by advanced technology. However, I don't believe that such devices offers ultimate solution. It is like taking an aspirin to cure a headache when you have a cold. The aspirin will dull the pain, but it does not really solve the problem.
But the problem goes deeper than the car manufacturers. People love cars, and nothing would convince them that they should give up their Land Cruiser for a battery-operated tricycle, which is why Nissan are addressing the bigger issue, changing the city to accommodate the car.
The desire to travel is fundamental to human nature. Everyone has a need to travel. Everyone has this desire, and it is therefore unchangeable.
Well, despite the optimistic 1950s sunshine of the future, some of these ideas have their basis in hard research. The traffic light system that assesses and prioritises junctions on a constant and individual basis, the redesign of highways, which are left uncongested by committing public transport and freight vehicles to subterranean passages. A shrewd investment because Nissan know that by creating more room in the roads, they can reap the benefits by selling even more cars to fill them back up again.